Good afternoon. I'm Mark Allen with Gaper.io, and I'm here today with Andreas Cretin, the CEO and co-founder of Madewithlove. Good evening in your case, Andreas.
Hi, Mark.
How you doing tonight?
Good. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, long day?
Yeah, a lot of calls.
Yeah, I'll bet. So can you share a brief background of yourself and your work experience?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a software engineer myself. I've been been programming things from a very young age, and I've been involved in a couple of startups in Amsterdam and New York, 2006, 2007, so a very long time ago. Even before the word startup was even known in Belgium, let's say. And so because of that, I ended up where we are today. So I was in a startup in Amsterdam, and we were struggling a lot with. We had two non-technical founders of the company and a technical team. And so the founders of the company were not really able to talk with the technical team. And so I stepped up with my co-founder, Jonas, who was also in the same company, to kind of bridge that gap. So I became the CTO. And basically, we saw a lot of other companies around us at that time had that problem where they had like non-technical founders, a technical team, and they were not really able to talk to each other. So we are a company that kind of bridges the gap between technical people and the management team or investors or whatever. So yeah, we're a bunch of software engineers. We're 24 people. All of us know how to code, or almost all of us, and our COO. And basically what we do is we help startups and scale-ups with technical challenges. So startups, like if you come to us with an idea, we can like totally build the product for you. While we build the product, we will also build a team, so that once we are done, you have a team on your side, on your payroll, that will continue what we did. So those kind of projects usually last like 18, 24 months on our side, and then we hand it over to the internal team that we build at the customer side. And then the other type of project that we do is what we call the brownfield projects, or the A-team projects, where there is a scale-up most of the time, which has like technical problems or technical leadership problems, and we kind of come to the rescue, solving that situation. So CTO leaves, gets fired, they have a lot of legacy code, and we bring in then a team of like usually four or five people, with most of the time an interim CTO, some product management, and software engineers that will lead them out of that challenge. And also those projects run on average like 18 months.
Yeah. Very nice. So what has been your experience with remote employment, both as a remote employee and a remote employer?
So I've never been an employee, so it's very hard to say
well, as an employer,
what it is like as an employee. But so we are actually remote from day one, because we were living in Belgium, and the company we were working for was in Amsterdam. Me and my co-founder were both in our living rooms, so that was pretty easy. We were remote from the beginning. And back then it was Skype, I guess, that we were using for communication, and AEM, I think that was still around back then. But of course, as soon as we started our company, Madewithlove, we had an office actually in the beginning, and but we had people coming from France, the Netherlands, Belgium, and so at one point in time we decided it absolutely makes no sense to kind of commute every day for like 2-3 hours to an office. Let's all move back into the closest co-working space we can find to our own place, and that's how we really started of being a remote first company. And so we've been doing that, I think, for let's say almost 12 years now. That we are remote first. So we do have offices, but most of the time they're empty because most people prefer to work from home. And of course now they're totally empty with this COVID situation. But yeah, I think our employees really enjoy the remote work. I think there's different ways of doing remote work. There is what I call telecommuting, which is probably what we are doing, which is people come to the office every day, to the remote office, so on certain hours. There is also this kind of digital nomads, like you, Mark. I see you're in a nice beach with a sailing boat, right? So you have these kind of people that are living from the cheapest place and work with the hours that they prefer. That's not something that works for our company. And I think that there is a very big difference between that. So that's also something that we really realized in along the way, that because we tried it with like that as well, that does not really work. And our employees really like the freedom they get to choose their hours, to choose the place they work from, the flexibility with smaller kids also to be able to bring them to school, stuff like that. So yeah, I think their experience is pretty nice. As an employer, the very nice thing for me is that I in our hiring process, we look a lot to the communication style of the persons we hire. So we know that the people we hire are very good at communicating. Most of them are public speakers or potential public speakers. So we know that they will not have a problem with communicating through to a remote in a remote way. I think that's very important, and so we can also really trust our people. I think that's really the biggest thing. That's I mean, the most important thing when talking about remote is that you should be able to trust your people.
Mm-hmm.
If you cannot trust your people, because we work a lot with CEOs and management teams of scale-ups, and what we hear a lot is like, yeah, we don't want to go remote because we cannot have the control over the people then if they're in the office, because we cannot see them. They could be on Facebook all day. And then I'm thinking like, okay, if that's the question you have with remote, then you have like a real trust issue with your employees. And then the question was like, how do you know that they're even performing in the office as well? Because you're not sitting next to them every minute. So I think that's probably also with this COVID situation is something that people will start to realize more and more that this is a good way of working. And I think our employees really like the fact that they have like focus time, and they can choose themselves like how much communication they want. They're not pulled into random meetings, stuff like that.
And just out of curiosity, are all of your employees in the EU, or are they scattered throughout the world?
No, so we are in 9 different countries. I would say on 3 continents at the moment. So we have Argentina, Brazil, Canada, Portugal, France, Belgium, obviously, Croatia, Portugal, Germany, and Poland.
Wow, no US employees?
No.
No. There's a whole world to conquer there.
No, that's for sure. Yeah, no, I don't know why we don't. No.
Well, it's only a matter of time, probably.
I guess.
Yeah. So what do you think is the future of remote employment, and what do you think can be done differently to make it more effective?
Yeah, so let's talk a bit about in the context of the Corona crisis, because in the beginning of the Corona crisis, when it started becoming clear that companies had to lock down, I was very afraid, because I know that a lot of companies have very bad ideas about remote working. So we started doing these kind of ask me anythings around remote working. So we had quite some people calling into those, because I'm very afraid that if people don't handle remote correctly during this crisis, that they will never trust their people to do work from home later on as well. So we have been really trying to push and share as much information as possible to make it enjoyable for everyone. But yeah, it's not easy. I think the employees will feel now what it is like to be able to work remotely. I guess the people that have kids that are at home, they will never want to work from home anymore, unless the kids are to school, of course, and then they will feel that there is quite some freedom. I think also the people with kids, for example, also in my case, that they realize that they how much time they kind of don't spend with their kids. So I think you see a lot of people either being very frustrated that they have to take care of their kids, or other people really enjoying the time, extra time they get with their kids. I think it will have the biggest impact on, like, sometimes I had to fly to New York for a meeting, like just for one meeting. I really hope that those kind of things are a thing of the past now, because we realize, I mean, the whole world has been in kind of a lockdown for almost 2 months now. And we are still kind of running, the economy is still kind of running even without the physical meetings. So I really hope that those kind of things are not necessary anymore. And also like crazy commutes, like I live in Belgium. If I need to go to a city which is 50 kilometers out here, I'm in a car for 2 hours because of traffic congestion. So I really hope that companies also start to accept more, like, okay, you're not in town, let's just have a meeting and through a Zoom call or whatever, instead of doing like the physical thing.
Yeah.
So I hope that's the main takeaway.
Yeah, and I hope so too. I think, and I think it's going to happen eventually. I think, all these things take time. I think there'll be a rush back when everything's lifted. There'll be a rush back, and then people are going to start to realize, oh, I kind of like that, not having to go into the office every day.
Yeah, sure.
So, and you brought up the pandemic, and it sounds like you really, I mean, you already were fully remote, so I'm assuming it didn't have a huge thing to you, but did it cause any roadblocks or challenges to some of your customers that you didn't expect?
So the funny thing is that one of the things that we started implementing when we started working for for customers is we try to make them remote ready.
Mm-hmm.
So this is really making them aware of the fact that if you do a stand-up and there is like one guy working from home because there is like a delivery man coming or someone is coming to repair the dishwasher, right? That you don't do it all behind like one computer and the guy being at home being behind his own computer. And when he has a question, no one even hears that he has a question, right? So this is like the first thing we tell them is like, if that's the case, everyone's behind his own computer, use your own headphones, have the same experience as everyone. And so we do that with all the customers, even without a pandemic or whatever. So we kind of prep our customers for it. We also do like remote weeks. So we tell our customers, okay, experiment with like teams being fully remote for a week, just so you're prepared for it. And because we did that with our customers, they didn't have a lot of struggle with this. So I think our customers, most of them, have been able to do that pretty well. The thing that they struggle with most is the face-to-face communication. That's not there. So, for example, trying to figure out like how someone is feeling. So the advice I give there to managers is, for example, the hours that you're not spending commuting every day. Most of the people, it's at least like 1 hour a day. Like if you take going back for 30 minutes, spend that on one-on-ones with your team. So that means for 5 days, you can do 10 one-on-ones, right? In that extra time. And even if there is nothing to talk about, just have a conversation with the person, like how is life in the pandemic for you? How are you enjoying your lockdown? And I have the feeling that really helps. And that's something that people had more struggles with, like finding that personal connection with their teams, not over micromanaging them, stuff like that. So you have to give them some freedom, but yeah, check in regularly as well in a certain way.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's interesting. You've already touched on what your company does. Is there any way you can like talk about some of the services that you actually offer? And I know you have some programming services too, correct? Mm-hmm. So can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, so we're software engineers. So what are software engineers? So we have like a couple of services that we do. So we have software engineering, product management, and CTO at Interim. That's the most common services. We also do audits, technical audits. So if you want to know if you're doing good technically, we can judge that. And we're doing also due diligence for investors. So when they do a capital round, the investor wants to judge the technical state of your product, and so we are a company that does that as well. When we talk about software engineering, so what we do is either we build products from scratch. So what we do there is we kind of bootstrap a product in a qualitative way, and then the other way is also that we intervene in legacy projects where when there is technical problems, we bring in our software engineers that will kind of solve the problems that you're having and guide your team. That's very important. We're always working with the team of the customer, guide the team of the customer out of the technical legacy hell, basically. So we are a consulting company. We do software engineering. That's really the main part of what we do, and some stuff surrounding that. So I always say we can fulfill all the tasks that fall under the CTO. So we can be the CTO. So we often are the CTO in companies where, for example, the CTO leaves, or the CTO is absent for whatever reason, or the board sets the CTO aside and asks us to replace them. And then in product management, what we do there, it's like really technical product management is trying to figure out like, okay, these are the ideas that you have as a management team or as a product owner, and translate them into something that is tangible products that the software engineers can build. So those are the services that we provide.
So, you're a typical consulting agency, but you're more of a new wave one where you have employees, you have some of them that are on contract and you have some are on the bench and they're ready to jump in as needed, right?
Yeah, so we're a bit different than that. So we don't have people on the bench. We spread our people over the different projects. We're a pretty small team, so we want to be kind of that niche agency or boutique, if you want. So we don't want to grow very big. We're 24 people, and I think that's perfect in size. And so we just try to select the right projects to work on. And sometimes, for example, if a certain project comes in, we will lower the capacity on another project. Customers know that can happen. So we try to juggle a bit like that. Okay.
Yeah. So slightly different model. That's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't generally have people on the bench for very long, I would assume.
No. And just to give you an idea, like the interim CTO thing, we've been doing it for 4 or 5 years now, and we have done I think 25 interim CTO assignments by now. So basically we've been a CTO in 25 different companies, which gives us like a huge technical baggage to use. We have seen most of the problems already a couple of times. We've seen different solutions to those problems, what works, does not work. So when we start on a new project like that, it's very easy for us to step in and to kind of have our drill of things that we think should change. And we can advise the management team pretty quickly most of the time.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine that there's a big difference in skill set between a CTO and a React developer, right?
Of course, yes.
Yeah. So I don't.
We have a blog. We have a blog post about that. So as a CTO can be a good developer, but a developer is definitely not always a CTO.
Correct.
So a CTO is basically a person who understands the technical, but also the business, because he's in the management team. Most of the time he's also in the board. So yeah, CTO is a totally different role than being a programmer. If you are a programmer as a CTO, that is nice, but it's also dangerous because sometimes you have the tendency to dive into code, and that's something that I have, for example, instead of guiding the team towards coding. So I don't think you need to be a programmer as a CTO. Of course, in an early stage company, you need to be. We also have a blog post about that, about the different types of CTOs you need in the different stages of a company. Early on in a company, you want to have like a CTO/hacker, someone who can really understand what your idea is and really make it very quickly. Then once you start growing, usually around your first round, so you have some traction, you have some customers, then you will need to shift that role into being someone who can bring in stability, make sure that the product is ready to scale, stuff like that, bring in some processes. And then once you go one step further, like if you are in the Series B level, or you're maybe like tenfolding your revenue, and your engineering team is probably going over like maybe 25 up to 50 people, then you need a CTO who is like really a strategic person that can steer a team of that size, of course.
Yeah, and they are different skill sets. I've actually was at one startup. I was both the VP of engineering and the database administrator. So, and I did some C sharp.
Yeah, and in that bigger stage, probably you have like a CTO and then a VP product, VP of engineering, kind of setup. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this has been very fascinating. I think you got a great little team there, and it seems like you really know how to do remote programming, remote work in general, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we always compare it with an open source organization. So when people ask us how we work, it's like, okay, and people say remote will never work, then I'm like, okay, but the biggest projects that we're running on are open source, and they are run as a remote team, right? So I always say we run in a similar way, and I think that's, I'm definitely not saying that works for all jobs, right? So that's very important. We are very fortunate that we are programmers, and our job is so easy to do remotely. Yeah, for us, it's a very convenient way of working. I know that developers really like working like this as well.
Yeah, and do you have a sales team, or you?
I'm the sales team.
So you're CEO / chief revenue officer too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'm
doing some programming as well every week. So.
Really? And what's your main language you program in?
It's a JavaScript and PHP. That's what I love.
Wait, just out of curiosity, which one you like better?
I mean, I think most of our work in PHP because it's backend work. But JavaScript is nice as well. I mean, you have to pick the language that's right for the job. That's important.
I agree. I know both, and I personally prefer JavaScript, but that's just a personal preference. So, well, this has been fascinating, Andreas. I want to thank you for your time today, and good luck in the future.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too.